I can confidently say that in 2025, Avatar is back. I mean, we have a ton of different projects in the works at Avatar Studios. Oh, and I guess the live action counts too, but I don't really care about that. But included in that list of projects is a brand new Avatar series that tackles the next Avatar after Korra. And ever since this was announced, I've been super excited, as I've wanted a brand new Avatar series for quite some time now. So today, I'm going to be going over a couple of hopes I have for the series, which in my opinion would make it pretty damn close to perfect if they deliver the same quality of writing present within The Last Airbender. And considering The Last Airbender is my favorite show pretty much of all time, I think we're in for a treat if they do this properly. Now, I know there are some leaks out there, but to be honest, I don't honestly know how credible they are, so I'm gonna sort of beat around the bush when it comes to those. Just know I'm aware of them, but I'm gonna try and keep this video as a separate thing while taking the leaks into consideration. With that said, my first hope might come as a bit of a hot take, as it's a separated, standalone narrative. As much as I enjoyed The Legend of Korra, I think it relied too much on the legacy of its predecessor, which meant that people cared way more about Aang and his ragtag team of benders, plus Sokka, as opposed to the actual main characters of the show. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but when crafting a sequel, I think it's important to not let the past define the narrative. Making Korra roughly 70 years after The Last Airbender was the show's first mistake. There hasn't been enough time in between the shows to make Korra's journey really feel like her own. So for this next show, I think it is important for it to take so long into the future that nobody from The Legend of Korra is alive, or alive to the point where they're like basically in wheelchairs and can't do anything. Yeah, the world should obviously reflect past actions, but what makes Avatar's world so fascinating to me is that its history feels real. Every Avatar's era is different, each with its own problems. So I think that instead of trying to create a sequel series, they should just make a really solid Avatar series fixating on the new characters, themes, and plot. Think of it like having a series based on an avatar like Kyoshi, just jumping it to after Legend of Korra in the timeline. Now, I know the previous avatars do play a major role in the development of the next avatar, and I'm not saying they shouldn't be here. I just think one of Korra's biggest faults was its over-reliance on what came before, and personally, I would just rather see a much more standalone story than one constantly referencing older characters and plot lines. You know, unless they actually are relevant to the story they're trying to tell and don't take away from the new developments. My second hope is probably the most likely to happen, and that's new bending techniques. Throughout The Last Airbender, Legend of Korra, and the expanded Avatar material, we've learned about a ton of unique bending styles, like metal bending, magma bending, blood bending, energy bending. All these techniques have really added an extra layer to the power system. And while there's so many unique styles of bending from past avatars to implement into this new show, I just personally want to see what the writers can cook up. It's not like I have a particular bending style in mind I want to see, it's just the excitement of getting new powers. So yeah, I'm an adrenaline junkie, and I want to see some new cool ass abilities. My third hope is a bigger emphasis on politics. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be related to the Avatar themselves, but I really do like the political aspect of this world. I thought what they did with the four nations in the OG show, like the stuff with Ba Sing Se and then the stuff with the Earth Kingdom and Korra, was all really good stuff. It added to the world building in a lot of ways and upped the stakes from a simple good versus evil conflict. People like the Red Lotus and Kuvira are just doing what they think is right, even though it's anarchy and fascism. While the simple Avatar good, Fire Nation bad conflict of the original does wonders for that show, I think going forward some more political tension might be a good way to keep older audiences intrigued as well, but obviously keep the fun adventure aspect too. The show should be for everyone. My next hope is a more developed side/main cast. Team Avatar is a perfect example of a great side cast. Even though Aang is the main character, Katara, Sokka, Toph, Zuko, even people like Suki all get a ton of development to the point where they could also be considered main characters. Nobody really gets left behind after their respective arc, and the characters are pretty consistent all the way through. You move on to Korra though, and most of those guys feel a little stale. I don't have nearly as much of a connection to Mako, Bolin, and Asami as I do the OG Team Avatar. Korra gets a lot, say what you want about her character, but the show definitely gives you the material to care about her if you resonate with her story. Oh, and of course, Tenzin's the GOAT, arguably the best character from Korra. So personally, I just want to see a more expanded sidecast, not big, but one that has a decent sized group of people which are all lovable and get around an equal amount of development. They really had something going for them in The Last Airbender, and really all they gotta do is copy that. But make sure to give the characters their own unique personalities and arcs. I also really do want to see a large array of different benders in the group, and one or two non-benders, as I think that works really well to give us some variety and action and different perspectives. I also do think it's pretty important to have some focus on some smaller side characters, like in The Last Airbender we had Jecht, Boomy, Uncle Iroh, and a ton of other recurring characters that breathed life into the story. My next hope is that the writers do the twin avatar concept. Now I know that the leaks might have confirmed this, again I'm not sure, but regardless it's just a super cool concept. Especially if they're raised separately and act as opposing forces. There's a ton of potential for new lore, character dynamics, it's just a peak storyline waiting to happen. Like, this thing is on a silver platter and we're all waiting to dig in to this 5-course meal. I honestly couldn't tell you how this idea should play out, at least not in this video, I'd need more time to write something, but the general concept alone gets me excited. And let me know in the comments if you'd want to see the twin avatars, or them just sticking to the norm on this one. Up next is for the avatar to not know the elements from the start. It worked for Korra, somewhat. I think her having all the powers and making her cocky at the start of the show was good, but after losing it all, she should have had to remaster them, not just given it back by Aang. What made Aang's journey to master the elements so effective was not only the race against time with Sozin's Comet, but also the emotional and physical hurdles he had to overcome to master those elements. Korra's prodigy story was a nice change and a stark contrast from Aang, and I do appreciate the writers doing that. But for this next series, I'd rather see them go back to their roots. The Avatar can know like 1 or even 2 elements at the start, but make them work for the rest like Aang did. I think it's just a more effective way to develop your main character, and I think it will resonate with audiences a lot more. Now, time for my final hope. What I really do want from this Avatar series is a unique setting. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I really liked how Korra's setting felt distinct from the OG show. I know this didn't sit well with everyone, but having the same setting over and over again just isn't fun for me. I want to see how the world has changed structurally, politically, and technologically. It's what makes coming back to this world in particular so fun for me. Staying in the status quo is just boring. So I hope the writers really do take their time to redevelop the world of Avatar again, to make that experience just as fresh and unique as it was when they first aired The Last Airbender. But that's it from me. Do you guys agree with my hopes? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, this is all just my opinion. To enjoy more high quality content, check out the videos on screen right now.